So what does this mean? Well, if we were to take the stance that Kelly was a con man, we would have to consider an incredible feat. To produce the keys, he would have had to memorize the grids within the Book of Logay. There are 96 grids in total, each 49 by 49 squares. This requires knowing the identity and exact position of 117,649 talismanic letters. Not to mention that he would have had to create his own functional language, write poetry in it, and painstakingly spell poetic verses backwards to John Dee. Why would Kelly go through all this trouble? If he was attempting to deceive Dee, wouldn't there have been an easier way? Clearly, meticulous care was taken in the delivery of the keys. There were no misspellings, nor were there noticeable errors in wordage between parts. After the ciphers were written, English translations were tapped out on little strips of paper, emerging from the angel's mouth. This is how the Enochian we know today was received.
Odor no Arcanis Ardroke, Dorpe Howard Oscar Odor the Own KS. The mighty sounds have entered in the third angle and are become as olives in the olive mount, looking with gladness upon the earth and dwelling in the brightness of the heavens as continual compasses.
Hey, listen up. Did you know that traditional cotton sheets are covered in bodily excrements? Yeah, like sweat and oil, dead skin cells, urine, feces.
Now would be a good time to cross-examine Enochian itself and ask whether it's a real functional language. To begin, Enochian has been studied by many linguists throughout the years to determine its characteristics and authenticity as a natural language, as opposed to an invented one. Here's what they learned. Enochian possesses its own unique phonetic system, grammar, and syntax, with a vocabulary that may be rather limited due to the non-availability of other texts, but is still able to produce subtle, complex, and intricate parlance, as seen in the translation of the 48 keys. This has led skeptics to believe that the Enochian language may actually be plagiarized from another linguistic source. Enochian shows no relation to any known language, including Biblical Hebrew, which is often thought by Christians and Jews to be the closest relative to the original primordial language, Adam. The linguistic problem created by this is that historians of languages generally agree that it's impossible for a person to invent a new language without drawing from existing sources, whether intentionally or not. If Enochian truly is unique in this regard, one must seriously consider the possibility that this language delivered to Edward Kelly is natural, or technically supernatural. Even the most respected and challenging critic of Enochian, the linguist Donald Laycock, writes the following at the conclusion of the Complete Enochian Dictionary. We still do not know whether it is a natural or an invented language. If the language itself is difficult to challenge, we must now turn to its script system. The Enochian alphabet has 21 letters. When spelled, diacritical marks, also known as accents, may be included, and only a scant few letters have direct English equivalents, while many have their own unique pronunciation. Enochian script is written from right to left, which is its only similarity to ancient biblical Hebrew. If Kelly or Dee drew inspiration from another source, it's possible that we'd find it in the alphabet, which was the first angelic material received by Kelly just days before the Book of Logate in March of 1584. It's notable that John Dee once owned an alchemical treatise written by Giovanni Panthius in 1530, which contained a table of the Enochian alphabet of the ancients. In the treatise itself, one can find an abundance of notes scribbled by John Dee, and even an attempt to write his name using Panthius's alphabet. But if you look closely, there is virtually no similarity to the angelic script received by Edward Kelly. If anything, this just shows that Dee's pursuit of the Enochian language dates back further into his academic career than what was once thought. Though John Dee and Edward Kelly continued to work cooperatively, the tension between the two Englishmen grew starkly as they traveled the continent, particularly after the reception of the 48 Keys. During this time, a close associate remarked that Dee seems to have driven Kelly to the brink of insanity, forcing him to perform long scrying sessions on a near daily basis. To add to this, Dee demanded long periods of fasting and cleansing before each. Perhaps this unending stress upon Edward Kelly is what brought about the infamous cross-matching incident that would ultimately lead to the destruction of their partnership. In 1587, Kelly made contact with the angels once more, but this time they brought an unexpected demand. In the interest of furthering the philosophical partnership of the two men, they ordered that John Dee and Edward Kelly share everything they had. Everything. And this included their wives. Dee was hurt and anguished by this order, as was his wife, Jane, who reportedly fell weeping and trembling. Of course, he initially objected, but after days of interrogation of Kelly and the angels themselves, should they be demons in disguise, he became convinced at the end that the order was genuine and that it was God's will. John Dee wrote in his diary, May 22nd, Mistress Kelly received the sacrament, and to me and my wife gave it in charity, and we rushed not from her. The pain and regret proved too much for Dee, and he could no longer proceed with their angelical meetings. 9 months later, Jane Dee gave birth to a son, Theodorus Trebonianus Dee. There was speculation among them that the boy was actually Kelly's, but Theodore was raised as Dee's own, and Dee loved him indifferently. The cross-matching incident would remain a secret for the remainder of John Dee's life. In 1589, he and his family returned to England, and Edward Kelly found work as the chief alchemist of Rudolph II. They would never see each other again. It's finally time to dive into the theories surrounding the authenticity of Enochian. We'll begin with the prime culprit, a man who has carried the label of fraud and charlatan for centuries, Edward Kelly. So who was he really? It's true that he was known to Dee under a different name, Edward Talbot, and we can only assume that Kelly was his real name. Historians know that he was well educated, but have difficulty tracking down exactly where. The most likely institution is Oxford University, where the name Talbot of Ireland was found as a Bachelor of Divinity. According to students who housed with his Talbot, at some point he abruptly left Oxford with an unsettled mind. The reason for his leaving remains unknown. And from face value, Kelly certainly fits the profile of an untrustworthy figure. Alleged crimes he was tried for in his past include forgery, counterfeiting, and necromancy, the practice of using dead bodies to foretell prophecies. Thus, many skeptics of Enochian's authenticity believe that Kelly deceived John Dee for the purpose of gaining money and influence, which is a legitimate motive. Dee never actually saw or heard the angels he communicated with. All messages were transmitted to and from through Kelly. Dee candidly confesses in his diary, "You know I cannot see nor scry." This emphasizes the trust he placed in Kelly's word. This clearly leaves Kelly in an advantageous position, but there are indeed a multitude of problems with this theory. First, it seemed to John Dee and all other witnesses that Kelly was a rather reluctant participant in the long of Dee's angelic pursuit. For someone who apparently wanted to break off the seances during the receival of the 48 keys, the arduous, stressful, needlessly complex method of their delivery would appear to be even more undesirable. Again, we would have to assume that he not only memorized the positions of 117,649 characters, but that he could speak Enochian backwards. When many times Kelly complained that he could barely understand the learned tongues forward, why would he go through such lengths and trouble? Second, the English translation of the 48 keys display a completely different writing style as compared to Kelly's own works. The solution would be that Kelly plagiarized them. Again, no source material has ever been found. Third, it is often overlooked that Kelly was only one in a line of 6 scryers approved and employed by John Dee. Before him was Barnabas Saul. Then after Kelly was John Dee's own son, Arthur, who was finally succeeded by Bartholomew Hickman. If Edward Kelly had falsified the angelic conversations, stylistic, thematic, and methodological fluctuations between each scryer would be found in the transcripts recorded by Dee, and this is not the case. The reality is that Dee's conversations with the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel seem to change little from one scryer to the next, with many direct parallels found between them. From this, we may actually begin to draw suspicions from another individual, the only one present for the entire length of this enterprise, Dr. John Dee himself. If there was any man capable of creating anything, perhaps it would have been John Dee. This man was incredibly learned, particularly in mathematics and, more relevantly, cryptography. Because of his expertise, John Dee was actually the founder of England's very first secret intelligence service, a predecessor to the UK's MI6. He established the world's most elaborate network of spies at that time under the rule of Elizabeth I. And he wrote to his queen, he signed his name as 007, a trait that inspired that of the fictional spy James Bond. And this leads to an interesting theory that John Dee was actually England's first spy, as he traveled across continental Europe with Kelly under the disguise of an eccentric woman searching for angels. Indeed, John Dee was loyally devoted to his beloved England. Who do you think coined the term British Empire? He was not only one of Queen Elizabeth's primary advisors, he was also her longtime personal friend. They first met. The young Princess Elizabeth Tudor was held under house arrest by her paranoid half-sister, the ruling queen who would become known to history as Bloody Mary. He was Elizabeth's science tutor, and they developed a friendship which would eventually last a lifetime. As queen, Elizabeth funded many of his mystical endeavors and protected her friend against those who accused him of witchcraft. And Dee would always remain by her side, continuing close communication with her, even as she left England with Kelly. Maybe this fact grants Dee some deserved credibility and trustworthiness. On this note, we may also need to consider that Dee was an intensely devout Christian, and it was obvious to everyone around him that he took his research into the magic and language of angels seriously, sometimes involving moments expressing great frustration over the torturous task of translation and understanding his convoluted pronunciation and grammar. His character is consistent and not easily doubted. Since the very kindling of his interest in divine wisdom, Dee sought it out not only for his own curiosity as an insatiable scholar, but as a sacred duty to heaven. He states in his journal, "My commission is from God. I feign nothing, neither am I a hypocrite, ambitious man, or doting or dreaming in this cause." Thus, the last question asked by skeptics is often of Dee's sanity. During his lifetime, there were never any signs of mental illness reported by his family or associates, one of whom commented that Dee's approach to every seance was singularly free from deluded fanaticism. In his own notes, one can find his painstaking cross-examination of each transcript, his meticulous authentication of each angel's identity, and his most vulnerable self-reflections and admissions of failure. Thus, the brain sickness theory is a disservice to a man that certainly deserves history's respect.
Brush your teeth in less than 10 seconds with this revolutionary toothbrush. It was created by a well-known dentist, and it took him over 3 years to develop the innovative expansion radius technology that powers it. He was tired of seeing his patients wasting their time and ruining their teeth with ordinary brushes. So he decided to partner with a product engineer to create a groundbreaking toothbrush.
More than 90% of my patients had dental decay problems. These patients all had one thing in common. They all used ordinary toothbrushes. I never thought that manual and electric toothbrushes could be bad for your teeth and gums. But after doing research, I discovered a dirty secret that proved shocking. The oral hygiene market has not advanced in the last 100 years. We've been using the same toothbrushes for the past century. No one ever bothered to investigate whether this was the ideal way. The truth is that these cleaning tools are the real reason you continue to visit your dentist. Chances are, you're using them totally wrong.
Free from the shadows of angels and John Dee, Edward Kelly went on to indulge in the patronage of Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II, whom he had convinced that his alchemical experiments would soon produce gold. He lived lavishly, and in 1590 was even knighted Sir Edward Kelly of Imani and Nuneaton. This high lifestyle, however, would not last long, as the destiny of Kelly would begin to play its cards. In May of 1591, Rudolph arrested and imprisoned Kelly, supposedly for killing an official named Jerry Hunkler in a duel. It's more likely, however, that Rudolph didn't want Kelly to escape from Prague before he actually produced gold. 4 years later, in the dungeons, Kelly pleaded with Rudolph, finally convincing him that he could fulfill his alchemic promise. He was restored to his former status, but under close watch over many months, he was unable to transmute the materials into gold. Tired of Kelly's sly games, Rudolph imprisoned him for the final time in Geneveen Castle in the city of Most. In 1598, Kelly attempted to escape from the high tower. He fell, broke his legs, and was dragged back into the dungeon, dying of his injuries only a few days later. If fate seemed cruel to Kelly, John Dee's was more and solemn. At the request of Queen Elizabeth herself, Dee returned with his family to England in 1589. He arrived in London by train, the guard of 20 soldiers at his side. The Queen received him in Richmond and welcomed him back. Unfortunately, reality set in when he finally returned to his home in Mortlake, finding that his precious, beloved personal library had been vandalized without mercy, its interior torched, and more than a third of its priceless manuscripts stolen. He learned that many of his neighbors feared him to be a conjurer. Much had changed in England since he left. Now his study and practice of the occult was damningly scrutinized and no longer accepted by the public. John Dee's heart was in shambles. He sought support from Elizabeth, who graciously appointed him a new position as warden of Christ Church in Manchester. But even there, he was despised and cheated by his fellows and subordinates. And soon after, his wife Jane and 2 of their daughters were taken by the Black Death epidemic. In 1603, Queen Elizabeth died and was immediately succeeded by James I. King James ordered the silence of all known sorcerers, of which they greatly harassed the 76-year-old John Dee, stripping him of his work positions. Finally, as a bad man, he sold whatever beloved books remained, one by one, in order to feed himself and his daughter Catherine, who cared for him until his death at the age of 81 in Mortlake. Dee's gravestone was stolen, and thus his burial site and exact year of death remain unknown to this day. Reflecting upon the fate of John Dee, all note that he recorded a bone-chilling nightmare in 1583, the year he left England with Kelly. Saturday night, I dreamed that I was dead, and afterward my bowels were taken out. I walked and talked with the verse, and among others, with the Lord Thrasorer, who was come to my house to burn my books. Though the tale of Dr. John Dee and his search for divine knowledge is tragic, today the complexities of Dee are recognized, as are his political and scientific contributions to the world at large. But his most important work, at least considered by him, was the celestial language he and Kelly discovered. And what we know about Enochian today comes directly from his meticulous journalings. As an old man, fearful that his neighbors and household would burn his work as heretical, he hid several of his journals and a grimoire in the false bottom of a wooden chest, where they would remain hidden for over 50 years after his death. This chest was auctioned off to a confectioner as a gift to his wife, who didn't discover the false bottom until 20 years later. Leaving the found journals at her desk for later investigation, her illiterate maid tore many of the pages to kindle the fireplace, until the wife caught her doing this and rescued what scraps remained. What we still have today is significant largely thanks to the level of detail and copious amount of notes produced by John Dee. Unfortunately, that doesn't make up for the fact that parts of Dee's original manuscripts are now lost, as is the ability to fully interpret the meaning and validity of Enochian. Speaking of Enochian, Dee never actually called it that. He referred to it variously as Adamical, Angelical, or Celestial.
Hey everybody, due to YouTube censorship, we don't have more videos up on this platform anymore. If you want the full catalog of incendiary videos, head over to Rumble, Odyssey, or BitChute.
Go, Justin, now do something!
Please, murder. Oh man, it is not looking like a great week for BLM or BLM-related offshoot groups, my friends. Just the other day, you had the Black Hammer organization. And they got kind of kicked out of their Colorado commune utopia because, surprise, after grifting gullible white people out of $65,000, they didn't spend that money on their land that they were going to create their Black Hammer City to kick white people out of. Fascinating how that works. Well, on top of that, now you got one of the Black Lives Matter leaders in the UK being shot, my friends. Being shot in the head. Oof, that's going to sting. Take a look at this, guys. We're at the Gateway Pundit. BLM activist hospitalized with life-threatening injuries after being shot in the head in London. Yeah, they got guns in London. I was told by all the lefties in this place, like that bitch David Hogg, that we got to be just like London, everybody. Just like London. Yeah, well, they don't have any guns. Only gun? She just got shot. They don't have that many guns. Well, okay, they ain't got that many guns, but look at the knife attacks that through the roof. And, by the way, they like to throw acid in people's faces in London. I don't getting rid of the gun solved anything, idiots. But here you go. I got some questions, by the way, right off the bat. I got some questions. If she pulls through, if this woman survives, and she was shot, so if she pulls through out of this situation, does she engage the police that she's been calling Nazis in order to find the individual that shot her in the head?
I've got to know this is no different from the KKK.
If you work with Nazis, doesn't that make you Nazi adjacent? I need a little bit of a press briefing, maybe from BLM. Do you guys have a press secretary that can explain how this works? If your entire premise is fuck cops, all cops are bastards, all cops are KKKers and Nazis, do you then work with the cops? You need them because you've been shot? I don't know. Maybe they can explain it to me. But anyway, a Black Lives Matter leader was critically injured in a shooting at a gathering in Southwark, South London, early this morning. That's interesting, a gathering. Again, I'm sure that won't come back up later. 27-year-old Sasha Johnson was shot in the head and is currently hospitalized with life-threatening injuries. I would imagine so. According to British media, the police say that so far there is no evidence to suggest that Johnson was a victim of a targeted shooting. BLM activists, however, are claiming that, of course, she was shot for her political activism. Okay, so if she was at a gathering, now listen, I know English language, it's a little bit confusing, but a gathering would imply that there were other people there. Did the other people not see what the hell happened? Did the other people, what is going on here? Or maybe they're not working with the cops. Maybe this group of Black Lives Matter people are not working with the cops because the cops are Nazis. So maybe they'll engage in vigilantism, I guess. I can't imagine that you're going to let somebody shoot your friend over here. A black person who shot her, was it a white person? Now, Black Lives Matter itself is 80-90% white people. So it still could be a white BLM person that shot a black person in their head. I don't know. No one's working with the cops apparently over here. But then the cops are telling everybody that they don't have any evidence to suggest that it was a targeted shooting. If this woman was at a gathering with multiple people and the police are saying that this wasn't a targeted shooting, was she shot by a black person? The person wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt while he shot a black woman in her head. This is all very confusing. I have this weird suspicion that if it was a white person, we would know. I would have this, I don't know, spider sense. in me that if a white person shot this woman, that the people in that gathering would be like, no, it was a white person. White person, blonde hair, 6'1", 100 pounds. I mean, I would imagine there would be an all points bulletin looking for the white person. And then on top of this, could you imagine the lefty media feeding frenzy over all of the articles about a white person shooting a black leader of BLM? They would be running this. They would be celebrating. The people in CNN Towers right now are salivating at the prospect of all the articles that they could write to push their narrative that white people suck if a white person shot this woman. Again, the silence is deafening over here. The silence is telling me, holy shit, what if a black person shot this woman? Over what? Who would know? I have no idea. I mean, and by the way, last summer, in Georgia, you had this Not Fucking Around coalition. It's a group of black militants. And the dude shot a bunch of his comrades with a shotgun in a negligent discharge. And the fucking media tried to make it sound like white people. Oh, look at this. 3 black militants shot in Georgia. It's an atrocity. Got to do something about this hate, white supremacy, domestic terrorism. Yeah, always. Certainly reporting this guy. Somebody certainly had a cell phone on them, but everybody awfully quiet. They're awfully quiet for a reason, I imagine. So we'll have to see how this shakes out. But here you go, friends. BLM activists. Be one of these leaders. There's tons of videos of this chick running around telling everybody, look, the police is no different from the KKK. She's calling for a revolution. She's threatening people. She's telling people she wants to take them outside. And this woman has now been shot in the head. And nobody's talking about the person who shot her in the head. Got a weird suspicion that it's going to turn out to be a white person, even though they will work their damnedest to make it. If it's a light-skinned black person, they will still say it was a white person. We'll keep an eye on it, let you know what's going down. But there you go, lefties. Looks like it's as gun-free as you think it is, apparently. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Support the channel. You hope you kept up to date on BLM over here. Hit that subscribe button and make way, because this salt must flow.
Why are people saying it's $89 portable AC? I recently discovered how to refrigerate any room in my house in under 5 minutes without using my home's costly AC. For the past few years, the air conditioner industry had 3 big companies that can set any prices they wanted and kept ripping off customers. A genius startup is turning this $135 billion industry on its head, with the National Weather Service reporting that it's going to be a super hot summer, maybe one of the hottest for decades. This product is quickly becoming the most successful device in 2021. What is it? Meet the BreezeMax AC. To learn more about it and snag one for yourself, just click the link on the screen or below and you'll go to a page and that will tell you all about it. We could tell you here, but it is kind of long. You'll enjoy reading it much more. So, click the link on the screen, head over to the next page.
Now, for many years now, Democrats have realized that the only way to turn their radical plans into a reality is to take more power and money from the American people and give it to Washington. They want control over almost every aspect of your life.
We can't drive our SUVs and, eat as much as we want and keep homes on 72 degrees at all times.
can't do any of those things, he said back in 2008, and all these years later, we see Obama's years carrying on his mission control.
In the same way that we have taxed cigarettes, we're going to have to tax carbon. We have to take combustion engine vehicles off the road as rapidly as we can.
But you support changing the dietary guidelines. Yes. Reduce red meat specifically. Yes, I would.
Now remember, the left believes that America isn't exceptional, it's systemically racist, and that means we shouldn't be any better off than the rest of the world. So the Greeniac saw an opening when the global economy due to COVID cratered last year. Because of the lockdowns, closures, and reduced demand, carbon emissions fell by about 2.6 billion metric tons, which was a 7% drop from prior. Climate change activists who ignored or dismissed the human suffering caused by these draconian COVID rules were positively giddy. That kids were hardened from the cancellation of in-person learning and athletics was simply not relevant, given the left's larger long-term goal of reducing America's carbon footprint. So they saw it as an opportunity to advance the interests of a global climate bureaucracy. Their pet media marveled about the environmental benefits of lockdowns, again, ignoring human suffering.
We no longer know how to live without refrigerators, without cars, without phones, or without supermarkets.
There is a silver lining.
Well, guys, it's time. Time for me to be president? Hello? I thought I was going to be president? Silence! If anyone's going to be president, it's going to be me. Well, can I be president for a little bit? Yes, Kamala. You can be president for a little bit. But you make it too obvious. This isn't fair! I should be president! Damn it, Hillary! That was never part of the plan! Well, Joe, it's that time. Time for what? You know, what we... Wait, what? What'd you tell me? God damn it, Joe! You seriously can't remember? Oh, man, it was prom driving. You know, anyways, you see, this is why it's time, Joe. Like, what are you talking about? Time for what? I still say it should be me. It should be me. Hey, let me tell you something, right? I am the House Speaker, right? And I'll be judged. If anyone is going to be president, that's me. Hey, I thought I was going to be the first female president. Shut up, Kamala. Well, how are we going to get Joe out of the White House? He still believes he's president. Leave that to me. I've got it all figured out. You wanted to see me? Yes. Yes, I did. What do you want to see me about? I have something very important to ask you, Joe. All right, what is it? What letter am I thinking about right now? 3? That's right. Now, what number am I thinking about? Potato? That's right. Good job, Joe. I did it. So, do I get a medal or something? Or? No, Joe, no. But you do get to advance to the next round. All right? Yeah? What's the next round? I want you to go see Obama. All right? Can I bring a teleprompter? No, you can't bring a teleprompter. Come on, man. Hey, so listen. If you pass this test, you'll say president. If you fail, it won't be president anymore. Wait a minute. I'm president? Go see Obama, Joe. Well, what do I do when I get there? Use the force. Use the force. The force? Can I help you? Can I help you? Are you talking to me? Yeah. Can I help you? Yeah, I reckon I'll have something to eat. All right, what do you want? You got any biscuits? We don't have no biscuits. What kind of biscuits you got? We don't have no biscuits. All right, what do you like? Everything's good. Shell likes the corn dogs, but I like the french fries the best. French fries and potatoes. that sounds good. So you'll have the french fries in? Are french fries onion rings? Nope. French fries are potatoes. Damn it, I need my teleprompter. I'm gonna fail this test. Hey, where are you going? Did I pass the test? Do I still get to be governor? No, you did not.
stay with me for the last time.
Hey, it's Danielle here at 4 Patriots with some really great.
Oh, hello, peasants. I have wonderful news. So buckle your seatbelts because your day is about to be absolutely amazing. Are you ready? Okay.
What's cracking YouTube? So I am back. So we're here to talk about the channel you're watching right now because there's going to be some changes coming up. I'm not going anywhere, I'm not quitting, anything like that, but I'm going to have to make some changes in the lead up to me putting the application in to get remonetized in about a week's time. YouTube demonetized my channel because of harassment, even though my channel had no strikes, completely clean. Somehow, somewhere, they found harassment. I had over 2,500 videos at the time when my channel was demonetized. They don't tell you which videos contain the harassment.
Yeah, they do.
So many options. And I'm sure you, like me, have noticed that the views for my channel have pretty much halved in that time period. Even though the likes have stayed the same, look, I thank my audience in the videos, watching the videos, commenting, all that. So my regular viewers are getting my videos, but they're not promoting my content like they used to. So I need to get the channel re-monetized again. I think it's very earnings for the last month that I had for a fraction of the.
Welcome to the Disney Bundle, where Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus come to life on all your screens. Transforming your world with 3 incredible streaming services and seemingly limitless possibilities. Bold Hulu originals, Disney hits, and must-see hits. Delivering something for everyone. Disney Plus, Hulu, and
Carrying out a growing outrage over a stunning move by the dictator of Belarus. His regime hijacked a Ryanair passenger jet to arrest a top critic of the government on board. That critic could now face the death penalty in Belarus. Our chief global affairs anchor Martha Raddatz has the latest. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, George. This is an outrageous move with the authoritarian president of Belarus essentially ordering the hijacking of a commercial jet to arrest a journalist who has opposed his leadership. This morning, international outrage over the forced landing of this airliner with more than 170 passengers on board, including U.S. citizens, detained in Belarus under the watchful eye of KGB agents after air traffic controllers there told the pilots of a potential security threat on board, a Belarus fighter jet sent as escort. But there was no bomb threat. Several European leaders say it was all a plot by Europe's last dictator, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, to detain and arrest prominent journalist 26-year-old Roman Protasevich, who helped lead massive opposition protests against Lukashenko's re-election last year.
His regime is threatened. He's feeling heat, and the dissident movement that this journalist was sponsoring obviously was getting under his skin.
Passengers near Protasevich described him racing to delete sensitive information from his phone and laptop once he realized the plane was landing in Minsk, Belarus's capital. Now, President Lukashenko facing swift condemnation for the forced landing. The Prime Minister of Greece, where the flight took off, calling it unprecedented and shocking. Prime Minister of Poland calling it an act of state terrorism. Secretary of State Antony Blinken demanding Protasevich's immediate release. The plane was released some 7 hours after it was forced to land with all the passengers except one, Protasevich, released. And this morning, no word of the journalist's fate.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin.
In heaven, the schoolgirl told me. She told me she died in your tummy.
Section 3 of the Book of Enoch, translated by Robert Henry Charles. This book is in the public domain. Chapters 17 through 37, Enoch's journey through the earth and Sheol. Chapters 17 through 19, the first journey. Chapter 17. And they took and brought me to a place in which those who were there were like flaming fire. And when they wished, they appeared as men. They brought me to the place of darkness, and to a mountain, the point of whose summit reached to heaven. And I saw the places of the luminaries, and the treasuries of the stars, and of the thunder, and in the uttermost depths, where were a fiery bow, and arrows, and their quiver, and a fiery sword, and all the lightnings. And they took me to the living waters, and to the fire of the west, which receives every setting of the sun. And I came to a river of fire, in which the fire flows like water and discharges itself into the great sea towards the west. I saw rivers, and came to the great river, and to the great darkness, and went to the place where no flesh walks. I saw the mountains of the darkness of winter, and the place where all the waters of the deep flow. I saw the mouths of all the rivers of the earth, and the mouth of the deep. Chapter 18. I saw the treasuries of all the winds. I saw how he had furnished with them the whole creation and the firm foundation of the earth. And I saw the cornerstone of the earth. I saw the four winds which bear the earth and the firmament of the heaven. And I saw how the winds stretched out the vaults of heaven, and have their station between heaven and earth. These are the pillars of the heaven. And I saw the winds of heaven, which turn and bring the circumference of the sun and all the stars to their setting. I saw the winds on the earth carrying the clouds. I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of the heaven above. And I proceeded and saw a place which burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains of magnificent stones, 3 towards the east, 3 towards the south. And as for those towards the east, one was of colored stone, and one of pearl, and one of jacinth, and those towards the south of red stone. But the middle one reached to heaven like the throne of God of alabaster, and the summit of the throne was of sapphire. And I saw a flaming fire, and beyond these mountains is a region of the great earth. There the heavens were completed, and I saw a deep abyss with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure alike, towards the height and towards the depth. And beyond that abyss I saw a place which had no firmament of the heaven above, and no firmly founded earth beneath it. There was no water upon it, and no birds, but it was a waste and horrible place. I saw there 7 stars like great burning mountains, and to me, when I inquired of them, the angel said, "This place is the end of heaven and earth."
This has become a prison for the stars and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire are they which have transgressed the commandment of the Lord in the beginning of their rising, because they did not come forth at their appointed times. And he was wroth with them, and bound them till the time when their guilt should be consummated, even for 10,000 years. Chapter 19. And Uriel said to me, Here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women, and their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind, and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as gods. Here shall they stand till the day of the great judgment. They shall be judged till they are made an end of. And the women also of the angels who went astray shall become sirens. And I, Enoch, alone saw the ends of all things, and no man shall see as I have seen. Section 4 of the Book of Enoch, translated by Robert Henry Charles. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapters 20 through 25. Chapter 20. Name and function of the seven archangels. And these are the names of the holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels who is over the world and over Tartarus. Raphael, one of the holy angels who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, he is set over the best part of mankind and of us. Sarakel, one of the holy angels who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. Ramiel, one of the holy angels whom God set over those who rise. Chapter 21. Preliminary and final place of punishment of the fallen angels, stars. And I proceeded to where things were chaotic, and I saw there something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. And there I saw 7 stars of the heaven bound together in it, like great mountains and burning with fire. Then I said, For what sin are they bound, and on what account are they cast in hither? Then said Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me, and was chief over them, and said, Enoch, why dost thou ask, and why art thou eager for the truth? These are the number of the